I'm writing right now, thinking and reading and writing a lot on perception right now, and the moral aspects of perception. And rather than just the neurological and ophthalmological aspects, what is it that we owe one another, regardless of who the other is, in terms of our seeing? And what is the healing property of seeing? What happens when we actually see one another? And I think there's an aspect of that that is part of what you're saying and part of this conversation, part of what you've written, which is there are times when we as humans become less and more visible. And either it's because we choose invisibility because we're ashamed or we don't feel worthy, ashamed. We don't feel like the world needs to look at us, or why would it? Or because we'd love to be seen because it's so human to need to be seen, to know that we matter to other people, but we are made to feel invisible. And I think about the effect on kids and on, every single one of us that just we need food, we need water, and we need to matter to other people. Going back to what you said about the relationship. So the accompaniment to me is about a willingness to say, I see you, and I'm not going to avert my gaze just because I can't fix you, or just because you in my culture are in a place that makes me uncomfortable, where I have to think about what to say. I still need to, as you say, be present for you.
Beautiful. I love that, and it's so easy for us to get myopic and it and why one of the ingredients I think to doing to accompanying each other is our own homework of self-awareness and watching our gaze, literally or figuratively, in what we see, how we see each other, perhaps as transactions or means to ends or other things that can slip in very easily. I don't mean to shame any of us. This is sort of the currency of our time in a lot of ways. So it's very easy to project agendas onto each other, and you really have to, in my experience, you have to really practice this broader field of awareness that is bigger than your self-interests or your wants, etc. So anyway, there's a lot to the anatomy of accompaniment that you're pointing us to, and it's a beautiful place. I mean, I this is especially in the frame of end of life, I think more than anything, I think our desire to be fully seen as we are is up there with sort of the primary driver, or it's certainly an enormous driver. So yeah, you're putting your finger on something really important. I think if we can regain, and I say regain because before the industrial revolution, technological revolution, sort of mid 19th century forward, the medical model of objectification, study hard enough and will cure all problems, including death. Um, is a very seductive selling, sale, and a lot of us have bought into it. We want it. We're complicit. We want our physicians to be godly and to work miracles and to intervene, to change the what's happening. So it is very seductive and it's very slippery. And I think what's been stripped out is, before we had all these possibilities before us with medications and gizmos and things. Medicine was very much the art of accompaniment. Healing happened by people being with people. And I think in our seduction, the last 170 years, that's gotten eased. That's kind of been eked out. It has felt kind of irrelevant. In the world of transaction and fixing, as a patient, your job was to basically to lay still and
Yeah.
get out of the way. Um, and true enough, true enough in some sense, I survived electrical burns in part by just laying still, letting the doctors and nurses and everybody do their thing. So again, I want to be careful that I don't come off as hypercritical. I just simply mean to point back to this very basic thing that you were pointing to and pull it back into the mix. I think palliative care, in my understanding, the narrative of my field is, if anything, it's about this. It's about remembering this aspect of care, and that beyond cure, there's still healing to happen. And that is a relational witness process. So anyway, back to your question. If we can find a way to revisit and acquire, regain, reacquaint ourselves with this lost art, I think it would change the world. I think it would change healthcare, and I think that would change, and it would part and healthcare would participate in changing the world. I'm not that may sound, gratuitous or pandering or just, dramatic, but I actually
I think
believe
there's
that.
a pushback.
Well, boy, I so spiritual, I wonder how you define it, Rabbi. I'll throw out, for me, spirituality is the sense that everything is connected, even though I can't kind of prove it. And there's a little bit of faith there. I just feel it. I seem to believe it. I seem to even know it in my bones, even though I couldn't pull out a blackboard and write a proof and prove it to you. And so for me, spirituality is that sense that underneath everything we are connected. So let me pause there. How might I'm just kind of curious. How would you
I
define that
agree
word, Rabbi,
100%
in
with
your
what you
work?
said. I also think it's the acceptance that there is a seen and an unseen, a known and an unknown component to all of us and everything, including experiences. That's how I think about it in this moment.
Beautiful, beautiful. It seems consistent. So I think, in this way, from this place, as far as I can tell, so everything matters. Everyone matters. There is no, and everything inside of us matters. How in a way it'd be so arrogant to exempt parts of ourselves or any one person from this connectivity. And boy, I love thinking about what's hanging out in the cauldron of things I don't know. It fills me with awe, frankly. Not a sense of ignorance, just wonder. And I do think that embrace of mystery, of finding one way or another to have a relationship to what we don't know, I think is really, really key. But I started to say, so everything is, in a way, everything is spiritual, or not. Nothing is. Maybe. I mean, who or what in the world of
Right.
creation is somehow exempted from this connection? I would say nothing. And therefore, given that all pieces of us, all persons and all pieces intrapersonal diversity and equity and inclusion, even, I like this language. Like, it is over the course of my life, I need to find my way to relating to everything that's in me, including the unsavory stuff, the anger and all sorts of things. But anyway, back to this point, I think if we, in the world of healing, this is where healing happens in so many ways, especially when we're not subject to the fix, to a cure, to some intervention that magically changes the nature of something. Um, so this is the plane to operate from. And I think we get tripped over the language of religion, etc. But I think that's why it's important to name spirituality, because I think most of us can wrap our heads around that. And you work from that place, and then all of a sudden you're not at odds with parts of yourself or odds with other people so much as finding a way to relate because they matter too. Um, so I think this is the plane of healing. This is the plane that science accidentally crowded out. And I say accidentally because uh, I don't think spirituality obviates science and vice versa. They're absolutely consistent. So anyway, so yes, now so I'm a big fan of what you're saying, and I hope this is the plane I work from all the time. Humans have been suffering and finding joy, making meaning, dying for a long time. This is not new. So the spiritual traditions, and this is sort of gets in the sort of historical and anthropological and social. I mean, there are modes of thought that are, as you well know, ancient. We've been chewing on these things for a long time. So why would we cut ourselves off from all that beautiful weight underneath us? One of the things I think that modern life has stripped, um, accidentally, perhaps I don't think maliciously, is the rituals. After all, people had been suffering and finding joy and making meaning and dying for a long, long time. And so spiritual traditions as sort of nodes of history have documented and kept pace with human being human for so long. So I think there's a really great call to return to rituals specifically to help carry us through a ritual like as a vector to pull us across a divide or a hard moment. Um, Very often when we're sick or struggling, we don't know what to do. We don't know where it's safe to talk. Um, and I think ritualizing that, holding space for each other, ritualizing that space so we know we're safe, we know we're held, and we're touching into something older and bigger than ourselves. And by itself, that sends a really kind of a beautiful signal and helps us feel safe. So I think one thing we could do that would be very beautiful in this country would be to sort of inventory rituals, and make and reacquaint ourselves with these rituals and make them available to each other. And where they have gone missing, we can also create new ones. So anyway, I'm going off a little bit, but so I do think there's something really really important for us there. And Rabbi, I guess it's a question back to you. How often do you see yourself pulling rituals from the ancients that are helpful now?
I think about ritual, especially at kind of transition points in milestone moments, as really powerful. Like the wedding ceremony is saying, this isn't a small moment. And I think the same thing happens around death, where I think the ancients got something before we complicated it or decided we had to look away from it because it's uncomfortable. They said, it's essential to being human to die with dignity. And by the way, that the rituals around death and dying take you from one point to the next. They kind of usher you. It's kind of back to that accompaniment idea. The ritual itself accompanies you and moves you through. So it gives you a cadence, it gives you a tempo for those moments of life. These are the things we do, these are the things we don't do. These are the things that take our focus, and these are the things that really are distractions and don't belong now. And I think even about death and dying, the Shiva ritual in the Jewish tradition, where it says, "This is and is meant to be intense in a way that other times in life aren't. This is extraordinary. So therefore, don't go out into the street where people are gonna ask you inane questions.
Mm,
You know, stay home and let the people come and care for you, literally nurture you and feed you."
mhm.
And then you move from that to the 30 days, and it says, "This is just another for several more steps from where you were. You are changed, but you're still in an intense period of mourning," and it goes on.
At the time, as I was fumbling my way, bumping into walls, bumping into parts of myself and others, and trying to metabolize this experience, I didn't have a grand plan that I was aware of. I may have been functioning in one, but I I didn't experience a calling like a thunderbolt. It was the small day-to-day quotidian stuff that pulled me in a direction. By dealing with my life, by being true to what was actually happening to me, I learned some things and I found motion, kinesis, movement, a momentum, and off I went and am still going. And now as I look back over the arc of these last 35 years, I see a coherent, cohesive story. Um, but I just want to be clear to anyone wondering, where's my vocation? Uh,
Right.
I it, that only lights up in retrospect. I was just trying to make my way through the day honestly.